Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us.
Excited to be here.
Today we're diving into a really thought-provoking sermon called Healed But Not Whole. Are Your Prayers Missing the Point?
Ooh, that's a catchy title.
Yeah, it really grabbed my attention. It's by Ricardo Zaal from the Fountain of Grace Ministries over in Pretoria, South Africa.
Okay, I've heard of him, I think. He's got a really engaging style, right?
Yeah, he's a great storyteller. And he really gets you thinking about how we approach problems and even how we pray. Like, are we just trying to slap a Band-Aid on things, or are we looking for deeper solutions?
That's a good question. Because so often in life, we just want the quick fix.
Right. And Zoll uses this analogy of ordering a car online, but you forget to say what kind of car you want.
Oh.
So you end up with a minivan when you really wanted a sports car.
Ah, I could see that happening.
And his point is, we might be doing the same thing with our problems. We're praying for healing, but maybe what we really need is wholeness.
So what's the difference?
Well, Zal says healing is important, of course. It's about addressing the symptoms. But wholeness goes deeper. It's about getting to the root cause of the problem and finding a solution that transforms us on every level.
It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You have to address those basic needs like food and shelter. But then there's this whole other level of well-being that includes things like belonging, self-esteem, and purpose.
And Zal uses all these fascinating examples from the Bible to make his point. Like, there's this woman who had an illness for years, and she touches Jesus's clothes, believing he can heal her.
Right, I remember that story.
But Zal points out, this woman wasn't just suffering physically, being sick for that long. It must have affected her whole life.
Yeah, it probably impacted her relationships, how she saw herself, her whole sense of identity.
Exactly. It's like if you're struggling with anxiety, it might not be enough to just take medication. You might also need to look at your thought patterns, your lifestyle, your support system.
So it's about addressing all those different layers,
Yeah.
not just putting a Band-Aid on the symptom.
Exactly. It's like if you're feeling down because you lost your job, maybe getting a new job isn't enough. What if the reason you lost your job is because you weren't managing your time well, or you had a conflict with your boss?
Those are deeper issues that might need to be addressed. It's like therapy for your career.
Right. And Zal's message, I think, applies even if you're not religious.
Absolutely. It's about understanding ourselves better and addressing the root causes of our struggles.
And he talks a lot about this idea of renewing our minds, which I thought was really interesting. It's like, are we holding on to negative thoughts or beliefs that are keeping us stuck?
Ooh, that's a good one. Because sometimes we're our own worst enemies, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And Zal doesn't shy away from the tough stuff either. He talks about the importance of forgiveness. He says holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Wow. That's a powerful image. And so true when you think about it. It's like we're the ones carrying that burden.
And he uses some really vivid imagery to drive these points home. He talks about the woman with the illness having to die for the hem of Jesus's garment, showing how desperate she was for wholeness.
Yeah, that really highlights her determination. It wasn't easy for her to get there, but she was willing to do whatever it took.
And then he contrasts that with the image of a demon-possessed man cutting himself, highlighting the destructive nature of unaddressed pain.
It's like we're turning that pain inward when we don't deal with it in a healthy way.
Right. It's a powerful reminder that our emotional wounds can manifest in really damaging ways if we don't address them.
So we have to face those demons, so to speak.
Okay, this is where Zal's message took a turn that I wasn't expecting. He starts talking about the prodigal son. You know, the one who runs away, wastes all his money, and then comes crawling back home.
Yeah, I know that story.
Yeah.
On the surface, it seems like the son just needed a handout, right?
Exactly. But Zal points out he was also looking for something much deeper. Acceptance, belonging, a restoration of his identity. He had lost himself, and he needed more than just money to find his way back.
It's like he was trying to fill a void with all those external things.
And his father, in the story, he doesn't just give him money. He throws this huge party, gives him new clothes, a ring. It's like he's saying, you are my son, and I love you unconditionally no matter what you've done.
That's such a beautiful image of wholeness.
Yeah.
It's about being accepted for who you are, flaws and all, and being welcomed back into a loving community.
And Zal suggests we might be like the prodigal son in some ways. We might be seeking quick fixes for our problems when what we really need is a deeper sense of belonging, purpose, and self-worth.
It raises the question, what are we truly hungry for? And are we praying for the right things? Are we settling for a temporary fix when what we really need is a complete transformation?
So we've been unpacking this whole idea of wholeness going beyond just healing. And Zal brings up this other example from the Bible that really got me thinking. It's about Naaman, this powerful military leader.
Maimon. Oh, yeah, he had it all right. Wealth, success.
But he had leprosy.
Ah, leprosy. That was a tough one back then.
And you might think, well, of course he just wants to be healed. But Zaal digs a little deeper.
Yeah, because leprosy wasn't just a physical ailment.
Exactly. It meant being isolated from society, considered unclean. Imagine how that would affect your sense of self,
Yeah.
your pride.
Your whole identity, really.
So Naaman goes to this prophet to be healed,
Hoping for a miracle, I bet.
but the prophet tells him to just go wash in this certain river 7 times.
Wait, seriously? That's it?
And Naaman is insulted. He's thinking, I'm a big shot. You want me to just take a bath?
That's pretty funny when you think about it.
But eventually he humbles himself and does it, and he's healed.
That's like the simplest things can be the most powerful.
And Saul keeps coming back to this idea of humility. Like, sometimes we need to let go of our pride and be open to solutions that might seem, I don't know, a little strange.
Yeah, like maybe we're overthinking things. We need to get out of our own way.
And it goes back to that idea of renewing our minds, right? Naaman had to shift his mindset, let go of his ego, in order to be open to healing.
That's a good point. It's like we have to create space for the healing to happen.
Zaal talks about how, for a lot of us, our default setting is to focus on what we lack. What's wrong with us? What's missing in our lives?
It's like we have a scarcity mindset.
And that can be a real obstacle to wholeness, can't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
If we're always looking at what we don't have, we miss out on appreciating the good things that are already present.
He uses this analogy of someone with a 100 Rand mindset who suddenly wins the lottery.
Oh, I like this one.
They might end up squandering it all because they haven't developed the skills and wisdom to manage that kind of wealth.
It's like they don't have the capacity to handle that level of abundance.
It's like that saying, wherever you go, there you are. Your external circumstances might change, but if you haven't addressed the internal stuff, your thoughts, your beliefs, you might just end up repeating the same patterns.
So how do we shift from that scarcity mindset to a more abundant one?
Zaal says it starts with gratitude, focusing on what we're thankful for, even the small things.
Gratitude is so powerful. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
And it connects to this other point Zaal makes about the importance of community. We need people in our lives who can support us, encourage us, help us see the good in ourselves when we're struggling.
Yeah, community is huge. Even in the Bible stories Zaal uses, there's almost always a community aspect to wholeness.
Like the woman with the illness, she had people who brought her to Jesus. Naaman had his servants who encouraged him to listen to the prophet.
It's like we're not meant to do this alone.
We need people who can reflect back to us our strengths and our potential, especially when we can't see it ourselves.
And on the flip side, we also have a responsibility to be that source of support for others, to offer encouragement, a listening ear, a helping hand. It's how we create a culture of wholeness.
Okay, so we've talked about renewing our minds, forgiveness, humility, gratitude, and community. Are we missing anything? This wholeness thing seems pretty complex.
Well, Zaal would probably say we're just scratching the surface. But one other thing he talks about is taking responsibility for our own well-being.
Oh, that's a good one. Because it's easy to blame our circumstances or other people for our problems.
But ultimately, we have the power to choose how we respond. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control our attitude and our actions.
It's like that quote, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Exactly. And Zaal encourages us to be proactive, to seek out resources that can help us on our journey to wholeness, whether that's therapy or a support group or just making time for things that nourish our soul.
And he talks about setting boundaries, learning to say no, prioritizing our own well-being.
Which can be really hard, especially for people who are used to putting others first.
But it's not selfish. It's essential. When we're whole, we're better equipped to show up for others and make a positive impact.
It's like putting on your own oxygen mask first before helping others on a plane.
That's a great analogy. And it brings us back to that point you made earlier about how Zaal's message goes beyond religion.
It's about living a more fulfilling and meaningful life, no matter who you are or what you believe.
He's challenging us to stop settling for mediocrity and to start pursuing a life of wholeness and purpose.
And while he uses these biblical examples, his message really resonates with anyone who's ever felt stuck or incomplete.
It's a message of hope and transformation.
Yeah.
And speaking of journeys, Zaal tells this other story that really brings it all home. It's about this man who was blind since birth. So Zaal's talking about taking responsibility for our own well-being, and then he tells this story about a man who was blind since birth.
Bartimaeus, right?
Yeah, he's begging on the side of the road, and he hears that Jesus is coming.
So he starts yelling, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me."
And even though people are trying to quiet him down, he just keeps calling out,
He was determined.
Zaal points out that Bartimaeus wasn't just physically blind, he was also socially marginalized. Think about it. Being blind your whole life, how would that impact your sense of self?
It'd be huge. You'd be so dependent on others.
It's a perfect example of how one problem can create this ripple effect that impacts every area of your life.
So it's not just about fixing the blindness. It's about restoring his dignity, his independence.
Exactly. And when Jesus asks him, "What do you want me to do for you?" Bartimaeus doesn't just say, "I want to see."
Oh, right.
Yeah.
He says something a little different.
He says, "Rabbi, I want to see." And Zal suggests there's a deeper meaning there. It's not just about physical sight. It's about being able to fully engage with the world.
To live a more meaningful life, to have choices.
And of course, Jesus heals him. And what's the first thing Bartimaeus does? He follows Jesus.
He's not just healed, he's transformed.
That's what wholeness is all about. It unlocks your potential. It connects you to something bigger than yourself.
And I think Zal's main point is that we all have that potential for transformation.
We might be facing challenges. We might feel broken. But there's always hope.
He's encouraging us to be bold in our prayers, to ask for what we really need, to go beyond just asking for a quick fix and to seek a deeper level of healing.
And I love how he emphasizes that this journey to wholeness, we don't have to do it alone.
We need community. We need support. We need people who believe in us, even when we don't believe in ourselves.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected and we can help each other along the way.
And Zal's message, it's not just for religious people. It's for anyone who's ever felt lost or incomplete. It's a reminder that we are capable of amazing things. We just have to tap into that power within ourselves.
It's about shifting our perspective, looking at our problems in a new light, and finding solutions that address those deeper issues.
And it's a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs.
But as Zal says, the rewards are immeasurable.
When we embrace this path of wholeness, we open ourselves up to a life of deeper joy and purpose. We become more resilient, more compassionate.
And more capable of making a real difference in the world.
It's been great diving into this sermon with you. It's really given me a lot to think about.
Me too. And I hope it's given our listeners some food for thought as well. What areas of your life might be calling for wholeness rather than just a quick fix? That's something for all of us to consider. Thanks for joining us on another deep dive.